In this video, you'll see how to order serial subscriptions in WorldShare acquisitions. So let's say I have two new serials titles to order, Astrophysics and Space Science and the Journal of Nanoparticle Research, and I want to begin these subscriptions with the January 2021 issues. I've logged on to WMS, and next I'll select Acquisitions. The first step is to find a record in WorldCat for the first title that I can use to order this for my library. If a record doesn't exist in WorldCat, I would need to create at least a brief level record to use for my order. So to get started searching WorldCat, I'll click Discover Items. I'll leave the data type set to bibliographic and the source set to all WorldCat. Since I have an ISSN, I'll click the Index dropdown and then I'll select the ISSN index. Then I'll enter the ISSN in the text box for my first title. Then I'll click Search, or I could just hit Enter on my keyboard. My search has retrieved 33 records. I'll refine the search by using the facets on the left. I'll select English as the language of the cataloging record, and this narrows my search down to just 10 records. I could scroll to review the records, or I could further narrow my results using additional facets, but I can see that the second record is for the print periodical, and it's a full-level record. If I want to see the full bibliographic record, I could click View Edit Metadata to see it in Record Manager, or I could click Open in Connection to see the full record in Connection Browser. Once I've confirmed this is the record I want to use, I can start the ordering process by clicking the Add To drop-down. And then I'll select Order. On the Add Item to Order screen, I'll review the acquisitions type, the processing type, and the subscription period. For the acquisitions type, I want subscription rather than one-time order. For the processing type, I need to use serial, which is the correct processing type for print serials as well as multi-part monographs. I'll click the ISSN drop-down, and then I'll select the first one, which is the print serial ISSN, and also what I used for my search. Next, I want to set the subscription period. To do this, I can click the calendar widget, and I'll select January 1st, 2021. After I select the start date, the system will automatically populate the subscription period to the default 1 year. If I need to change it, I could click the drop-down and change the subscription period to 6 months or to 2 years. Or I could change the end date. For example, if I needed an 18-month period, I could change the end date to June 30th, 2022, and then the subscription period would be adjusted to reflect that. I'll leave it set as a 1-year subscription for the 2021 calendar year. Next, I want to create a new purchase order for this title, and I'll also add my second title to the same purchase order. So I'll click New Order. On the Add New Order screen, I'll enter an order name, Serials 2021. Next, I'll click the Order Type drop-down, and I'll select Purchase Order. Next, I'll start typing the name of the vendor I want to use, Robinson's Books and More. And when it appears in the drop-down, I'll click it to select it. The vendor PO number is optional unless you are importing order items. I'll leave the tax handling set at the default tax item cost, and then I'll click Save. The system confirms that the purchase order has been created, and a system PO number is automatically assigned. If I scroll down, you can see that the new purchase order now appears under Existing Orders. To add my serial title to the new purchase order I created, I'll click Add in the Action column. And then you can see that the number of items on the order has incremented from 0 to 1. And then I'll click Close. Next, I want to find a bibliographic record for my second title to add to the same purchase order. I'll click Clear to clear the previous search. And then I'll enter the ISSN for the title, Journal of Nanoparticle Research. And then I'll click Search, or again, you can just hit Enter on your keyboard. My search results in 27 records. Again, I'll use the facets on the left to narrow my search. So I'll select English as the language of cataloging. And now I have just 11 records in my results list. I can see that the first record is a full-level PCC record for the print periodical. Once I've determined this is the record I want to use, I'll click the Add to drop-down, and then I'll select Order. On the Add Item to Order screen, I'll verify that the acquisitions type is set to subscription and the processing type is set to serial. Then I'll click the ISSN dropdown and I'll select the ISSN for the print that I used for my search. Next, I'll click the calendar widget next to the start date to set my subscription period. And I'll click January 1st, 2021 on the calendar. And then you can see that the end date is automatically populated for December 31st, 2021 for the default one-year subscription period. The purchase order I used for my first title still appears on this screen since I'm adding this title to my order in the same session. Otherwise, I would have to search or filter to find a purchase order that I want to use, or I could again create a new order. I'm going to add this title to this purchase order, so I'll click Add in the Action column. And when I do that, you can see the items on the order has incremented from 1 to 2. Since I'm finished adding titles to this order, I can go directly to the purchase order by clicking either the order number or the order name. I'm now viewing the purchase order, and I can make any needed edits before placing the order. I'm going to add an external order ID, which is a unique identifier for the order from an external financial system. And this number will appear on the order that is transmitted to the vendor as well. Then I'll scroll down to see the order items. I'll need to add funds for each item. So I'll click the Fund dropdown for the first item. And I'm looking for my Cereals SciTech Fund. So I'll start typing the first few letters of the fund name, and then I'll click it to select it. I'll also click the Fund dropdown for my second item, and I'll start typing the first few letters of the same Cereals fund. And I will click it to select it as well when it appears. Next, I'll need to add a unit price for each item. So I'll enter $300 for my first item, and then I'll enter a unit price for my second item. So I'll enter $550 for my second title. If for some reason I needed to change the record that I'm using for one of the titles, I could click the blue information icon for the title, and then to change the record, you would just click Change Resource. There's also an option to change the record right before receiving. I can also edit each title individually by clicking the title. In fact, if you need to change the acquisitions type or processing type, you would need to do it from the item screen. You can also set or edit the subscription period and the renewal setting here. I'll leave it set at Renew, which is the default. I can also add a requester for this title. So I'll type in the requester name and then select it when it appears. Today's date is automatically populated in the Date Requested field, but you can change it by clicking the calendar icon. You could also optionally add a date needed or a reviewer. I'll scroll up to see the other tabs at the top, and I'll click the Location tab. Then I'll click the Shelving Location drop-down, and I'll select the Main Periodicals Shelving Location. I can go back to the Order screen by clicking the Order tab, and then I'll click the order number PO 2021-3. Then I'll scroll down to see the two titles again on this order. I'm going to change the shelving location for my second title, which I can do here on the order screen by clicking the Location drop-down. And I'll also select the Main Periodicals shelving location for this title. Next, I want to apply a discount for both titles. So I'll click the checkbox at the top to select all titles on the screen. Then I'll click the Update Items drop-down, and I'll select Discount. Then I'll type in my discount of 5%, and then I'll click Recalculate. And you can see that the 5% discount for both titles has been applied. And if I hover over the total, for example, for the first title, I can see the actual discount amount that has been calculated and applied. I can add a note by clicking the folder icon in the Notes column. For the type of note, I'll click the drop-down and I'll select Staff. Then I'll type in my note, Notify Dr. Smith when first issue arrives. I'll leave it set to the default, Attached to this order item only, and then I'll click the Show on drop-down, and I'll select Payment. And finally, I'll click Save. My note then appears in display format. In case I want to edit it, I could click the pencil icon. Or if I want to add a second note, I could click Add Note. I'll click Close. Now that I'm finished editing my order, I'll click Place Order. The system confirms you are about to place this order. I'll leave the checkbox to notify the vendor. If I had already sent the order to the vendor or ordered on the vendor's website, I could leave this unchecked so that placing the order would just place it in WMS and encumber the funds. But I want to send the order to my vendor, so I'll click Continue. I have my default method email HTML and the to and reply set in my vendor record, but I could change this if I needed to here. Next, I'll click the checkbox to preview the email before sending it, and then I'll click Continue. I'll review the order, and I can scroll down to see the item information and cost. And then I'll click Place and Send Order. And in a moment, the system confirms my order has been placed. The status changes from open to placed, and at the same time, the amounts for the designated funds move from the remaining balance to the encumbered amounts for those funds. If you have questions about ordering Serials subscriptions, you can find contact information for OCLC support in your region, as well as additional training and documentation at help.oclc.org.